The cruiser lights sliced through the rain-slicked night like accusations, bathing the porch of my safe house in a pulsing red and blue hell. I gripped the shotgun. Not loaded, never would be. My knuckles white against the worn oak door, heart slamming as if it could burst free and run. "This is private property," I shouted into the downpour, voice cracking like thunder. "And you're trespassing. Back off before I make the call myself." Liam Harper had always believed in second chances, the kind that bloomed in the cracked sidewalks of Seattle's forgotten neighborhoods, where the coffee was black as regret and the rain washed away yesterday's sins. But on that sodden October evening in 2024, as the patrol car's siren wailed its final warning, I learned that some doors, once slammed shut, stayed that way forever. The woman at the center of it all, let's call her Karen, because every HOA nightmare has one, stood there in her pristine raincoat, pearls gleaming like judgmental eyes, flanked by two officers who looked more bewildered than authoritative. "This house is mine by right of the association bylaws," she spat, her voice a venomous hiss over the storm. "You squatters think you can hide from the rules? Open up, or they'll drag you out." I didn't open up. Instead, I watched from the sliver of window as the cops, after a tense exchange involving property deeds pulled up on a tablet screen, cuffed her right there on my gravel driveway. Her shrieks echoed like a bad opera. "You'll pay for this. The neighborhood will hear," fading into the squad car's taillights as they hauled her away. Arrested for attempted unlawful entry, falsifying claims, the works. It was the kind of absurd American justice that made you laugh through the tears, but as the rain hammered the roof like fists of fate, all I could do was slide down the door, shotgun clattering to the floor, and whisper Carter's name into the empty cabin. Where the hell was he? The man who'd promised this safe house was our sanctuary, our escape from the world's sharp edges. It had started 6 months earlier, back when Seattle's summer still clung to the air like a lover's breath, warm, fleeting, full of possibility. I was 28, a freelance graphic designer scraping by on gigs for indie bands and coffee roasters, living in a cramped Capitol Hill apartment that smelled of instant ramen and unfulfilled dreams. Carter Ellis crashed into my life at a queer art walk in Pioneer Square, where the galleries spilled onto the streets with rainbow flags snapping in the breeze and bass thumping from pop-up DJ sets. He was 32, broad-shouldered with that effortless Pacific Northwest ruggedness. Faded flannel over a band tee, jeans worn soft at the knees, hazel eyes that crinkled when he smiled like he knew all your secrets but wouldn't tell. He was a park ranger up in the Olympics, the kind of guy who quoted Thoreau between sips of craft IPA and had calluses from chopping wood, not keyboards. We locked eyes over a sculpture of intertwined vines, symbolizing queer resilience or some poetic bullshit. I can't remember now, only the spark. "That's us," he said, nodding at the art. His voice low and gravelly, laced with that Seattle drawl that made vowels stretch like taffy. Twisted together, unbreakable. I laughed, too loud, spilling my Pinot Grigio on his boot. He didn't care. By midnight, we were tangled in the sheets of his truck bed camper, parked overlooking Elliott Bay, the city lights blurring into stars as he traced the scars on my ribs, remnants of a foster care brawl I'd rather forget. "You're safe with me, Liam," he murmured against my neck, his breath warm as summer fog. And God, I believed him. From there, it was a whirlwind of stolen weekends. Hikes through Hoh Rainforest where ferns carpeted the ground like green secrets, picnics on Hurricane Ridge with thermoses of spiked cider, lazy afternoons in his tiny Ballard bungalow fixing up vintage radios while he hummed folk tunes. Carter was the anchor I'd never had, steady, kind, with a laugh that rumbled like distant thunder. He talked about his ex, a high school flame who'd bailed when Carter came out, leaving him adrift in the straight-laced logging towns of his youth. "I won't do that to you," he'd say, pulling me close under the quilt his grandmother stitched. "We're building something real." And we were, or so I thought. The safe house came into play that August, after a brutal client rejection left me spiraling. Emails unread, sketches crumpled, the kind of dark cloud that follows you like a stray dog. Carter drove me out to the cabin unannounced, a weathered A-frame on 5 acres off the Dos Ualipes River, tucked in Jefferson County where the Olympics rose like ancient guardians. "It's mine," he said, unlocking the door with a key on a leather thong around his neck. "Inherited from my uncle last year. No HOA bullshit, no neighbors prying. Just us." Inside, it was a time capsule. Knotty pine walls, a stone fireplace stacked with cordwood, a loft bedroom overlooking the river's murmur. We spent the weekend there. No phones, no world. Just the creak of floorboards under our feet, the sizzle of trout on the cast-iron skillet, and nights where his hands mapped my body like he was charting unclaimed territory. "This is our spot," he declared on the porch swing one dawn, coffee steaming in our mugs as mist rolled off the water. "When life gets too loud, we come here. Promise me you'll remember that." I promised, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of pine and possibility. Little did I know, the loudest storm was brewing not from the city, but from the very soil this place stood on. Back in the present, post-arrest chaos, I paced the cabin's creaky floors, the rain a relentless drumbeat outside. My phone buzzed, finally, a text from Carter. "Stuck in a ranger meeting. Everything okay?" Everything? I wanted to scream. The woman who'd shown up with cops, waving forged papers claiming the cabin was part of some phantom HOA development, her eyes wild with entitlement. She'd cornered me earlier that week at the local market, ranting about encroachment and preserving property values. But tonight was escalation, pure Karen-fueled delusion. I typed back, "Your safe house just became a crime scene. Call me now." He didn't. Not for hours. When he finally rang, his voice was winded, like he'd run from the trailhead. "Liam? What happened?" "I'm sorry, the signal's shit up here." I unloaded. The sirens, the cuffs, her parting shot about suing that fairy and his boyfriend into oblivion. Carter went quiet. Then, "Jesus, stay put. I'm coming." Relief flooded me, sharp as the whiskey I poured neat by the fire. But as the flames danced shadows on the walls, doubt flickered too. Why hadn't he mentioned the cabin's murky title? Uncle's inheritance? Sure. But whispers from the county clerk I'd Googled in a panic hinted at liens, disputes, threads in a tapestry I didn't know existed. By the time his truck crunched up the drive at 2 a.m., the storm had broken into a hesitant drizzle, stars peeking through like hesitant witnesses. He burst in, soaked and smelling of earth, pulling me into a bear hug that squeezed the air from my lungs. "God, Liam, I'm so sorry." His lips found mine, urgent, tasting of salt and regret, and for a moment, the world narrowed to us, two men against the tide. We collapsed onto the rug, clothes shedding like old skins, his fingers threading through my hair as he whispered apologies into my collarbone. "This place is ours. No one's taking it." But as dawn crept in, gray and unforgiving, I pulled away, the warmth cooling to unease. "Carter, what aren't you telling me?" He froze, hazel eyes darkening like storm clouds over the sound. That's when the first crack appeared, not in the cabin's beams, but in the foundation of us. The days blurred into a fragile normalcy after the arrest, the kind you patch together with duct tape and denial. Karen, real name Evelyn Hargrove, as the local paper gleefully outed in a front-page splash. Made bail by noon the next day, her mugshot a viral meme on Seattle's queer Twitter feeds. Pursed lips, bouffant hair defying gravity, captioned, "When the HOA summons the ghost of colonialism." The story spread like wildfire through the community's group chats, a cathartic laugh amid the grind of everyday bigotry. But for me, it lingered like damp rot in the walls. Every creak of the cabin door made me jump, every shadow on the porch a phantom cop car. Carter stayed glued to my side, calling in sick from ranger duties, his presence a balm and a bandage all at once. We turned the fallout into fuel in that quintessentially American way, resilience wrapped in flannel and folk rock playlists. Mornings, we'd hike the river trail, his hand firm in mine, pointing out eagle nests and salmon runs as if naming them could anchor us. "See that? Steady as she goes," he'd say, squeezing my fingers, his ranger's knowledge a quiet poetry. Afternoons were for fortifying the safe house, nailing up no trespassing signs with rusted nails, planting thorny blackberry hedges along the property line like natural barbed wire. Evenings, we'd cook, his venison chili bubbling on the stove, my vegan cornbread rising defiant beside it, talking dreams over candlelight that flickered like uncertain futures. It was during one such night, 3 weeks post-chaos, that the romance reignited proper. We'd driven into Port Townsend for supplies, the ferry slicing through the Strait of Juan de Fuca under a sky bruised purple by sunset. The Victorian town, with its gingerbread houses and salt-tanged air, felt like a step back to a softer era. We wandered the waterfront, street musicians strumming covers of Indigo Girls, the crowd a mix of tourists and locals who nodded at us without a second glance. Progress, Carter called it, his arms slung casual around my shoulders. Remember when I'd tense up just holding your hand in public? I did, those early dates in Seattle, eyes darting for judgment, the weight of being the gay couple in a city that preached inclusion but whispered slurs. Dinner was at a hole-in-the-wall oyster bar, where we split a dozen Kumamotos, briny and alive, washing them down with local stout. His foot hooked mine under the table, a secret Morse code of affection. To us, he toasted, clinking glasses, his gaze holding mine with that intensity that still unraveled me. Back at the cabin, the mood shifted, doors locked, windows shuttered against the world. He lit the fireplace, the crackle underscoring his slow undress of me, shirt buttons yielding like confessions. No rush, no frenzy, just the deliberate mapping of skin, his lips brushing collarbones, ribs, the dip of my hip, each touch a vow renewed. I love you, Liam, he breathed, our bodies aligning like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time. This us is home. Love in those stolen hours felt invincible. But love, as I'd learn, is a river. Beautiful from the bank, treacherous in the current. The first ripple came mid-November, when a certified letter arrived via the rural mailbox. A summons from Hargrove's lawyer, alleging adverse possession and demanding a title search. Carter crumpled it unread, tossing it into the fire with a curse. Bullshit. Uncle left it clear. But his jaw tightened, a tell I'd come to dread, and he buried himself in overtime shifts, vanishing into the Olympics' fog-shrouded trails for days at a time. I filled the silence with work, sketching logos for a queer youth nonprofit in Tacoma. Rainbow fists raised against the storm. It grounded me, those designs. Bold lines, vibrant hues, symbols of fight and flourish. Yet doubt gnawed, a quiet erosion. Late-night calls grew shorter, his voice edged with fatigue. Just the job, babe. Bears don't hibernate yet. I wanted to believe it, chalking up the distance to seasonal blues, the way Seattle winters hollow you out. But when he canceled our Thanksgiving escape, turkey at his sister's in Bellingham, a rare foray into his family fold, I pressed. What's going on, Carter? Talk to me. We met at our old haunt, the Art Walk spot, now decked in holiday lights that twinkled like false promises. Rain misted the air, turning the pavement to mirrors. He looked gaunt, flannel hanging looser on his frame, eyes shadowed. It's nothing, promise. But his hug felt obligatory, the kiss on my temple perfunctory. As we walked, he dodged questions about the cabin, pivoting to ranger tales. A lost hiker rescued, a wolf pack sighted. I let it slide, clinging to the man who'd once carried me piggyback across a creek, laughing till we both tumbled in. The betrayal didn't announce itself with fanfare. It crept in like tidewater, subtle and submerging. December hit with a vengeance, snow dusting the Olympics peaks, the cabin's pipes groaning against the freeze. I'd driven up alone for a design deadline, holing up with my laptop and a thermos of mulled wine. That's when I found it. Tucked in a boot box under the bed, a stack of papers yellowed at the edges. Uncle's will, sure, but annotated, red ink scrawls noting disputed boundary, and HOA extension clause from '98. And there, buried in the legalese, a cosigner, Evelyn Hargrove, listed as adjacent property holder with right of first refusal. My stomach plummeted, colder than the draft seeping through the floorboards. Carter had known. Not the full extent, maybe, but enough to hedge. Why hide it? I confronted him that night, papers fanned on the kitchen table like a bad hand in poker. He arrived late, snow in his hair, face paling as he scanned the documents. Liam, listen. No. My voice cracked, raw as exposed wire. You lied. This Safehouse, our sanctuary. It's a goddamn time bomb. He reached for me, but I recoiled, the space between us widening like a fault line. Was it ever yours to promise? Or was I just convenient? His eyes welled, that crinkle around them now etched with pain. I was protecting us. Hargrove's been gunning for this land since Uncle died. Some developer dream of turning it into condos. I thought I could fix it quiet like, protect us? The words twisted like a knife. We'd built dreams here. Lazy Sundays sketching by the fire, whispered plans for a future with rescue dogs and maybe, someday, a ring exchanged under these eaves. Now it felt like fool's gold. We argued till the wee hours, voices echoing off the pine, accusations flying like embers. You think I don't get scared? He shouted, pacing the room like a caged wolf. Coming out cost me my dad, my hometown. I built walls so high because losing you, God, Liam, that's the real storm. I wanted to bridge the gap, to pull him close and let forgiveness flood in. But betrayal's a bitter root, and mine had taken hold. By morning he was gone, truck vanishing into the whiteout, leaving a note. Need space to sort this. Love you always. The cabin, once refuge, now echoed with absence. A hollow shell mirroring the ache in my chest. I drove back to the city, the Olympics receding in the rear view like a half-remembered dream, wondering if love could weather a winter this severe. Seattle in January is a gray purgatory, where the clouds press low and the coffee shops become confessionals for the heartbroken. I threw myself into the nonprofit gig, churning out graphics till my eyes burned. Each pixel a distraction from the ghost of Carter's touch. Friends rallied. My roommate Jax, a drag queen with a heart bigger than her wigs, dragged me to bingo nights at the Rendezvous. My sister Mia, visiting from Portland, baked pies laced with unsolicited advice. Dump the Ranger baggage, Lee. You're too good for half-truths. But dumping felt like amputating a limb. The pain was familiar, a tether to what we'd had. The Hargrove saga simmered in the background, her lawyer's motions piling up like snowdrifts. Motions to dismiss her arrest, countersuits for defamation. The local news ate it up. Suburban showdown. Queer couple versus entitled enclave. We became unwitting folk heroes in the queer press. Op-eds praising our stand against gentrified gatekeeping. It should have empowered me, but every byline mentioning Liam and Carter twisted the knife. Were we still a couple? His texts were sporadic, thinking of you. Trails calling. Each one a breadcrumb leading nowhere. I returned to the cabin solo, steeling myself against memories. The blackberries I'd planted were dormant, thorny skeletons against the frost-kissed earth. Inside, I aired it out, scrubbing counters till they gleamed, as if cleanliness could cleanse the hurt. That's when the call came. Not from Carter, but from a county surveyor named Ruiz, voice gravelly over the line. Mr. Harper? Got news on that title dispute. Mind if I swing by? Ruiz arrived at dusk, a compact man in Carhartt overalls, thermos in hand, eyes sharp as a hawk's. We pored over maps unrolled on the kitchen table, his finger tracing lines like veins on a leaf. Your partner's uncle bought this parcel fair in '92, but Hargrove's family had a verbal easement, old logging right-of-way that blurred boundaries. She's claiming adverse possession, says she's maintained the edge for decades. Maintained? I snorted, recalling her pristine lawn bleeding into our wild overgrowth. And the HOA angle? He chuckled, dry as winter wind. Phantom as a ghost town. That development fizzled in the recession. Papers never filed proper. But she's got a judge in her pocket, old boys club stuff. We talked late. His stories of rural feuds a bomb. Families torn by land grabs, loves lost to greed. Fight it, he urged, packing his rolls. This ain't just dirt. It's legacy. Legacy. The word hung as he left, headlights carving through the dark. Emboldened, I dove into research, nights blurring at the University of Washington's Law Library, poring over precedents till the fluorescent hum lulled me to half-sleep. Queer land rights, indigenous claims overlapping the Olympics, threads weaving a tapestry of resistance. It was humanistic, this fight. Not just for a cabin, but for spaces where love could breathe free, untrammeled by straight-laced legacies. I drafted affidavits, gathered neighbor testimonies, old-timers who'd watched Hargrove's entitlement metastasize like ivy. Carter resurfaced mid-February, unannounced, his truck pulling up as I shoveled the drive, breath fogging in the chill. He stepped out, bundled in wool, a bouquet of snowberries clutched like a peace offering, red orbs stark against the white. Heard about the filings. You're fighting? His voice was tentative, hazel eyes searching mine for absolution. Yeah. I leaned on the shovel, sweat beading despite the cold. For us. For this. He nodded, slow, stepping closer till the space crackled. I messed up, Liam. Hid the mess, 'cause I couldn't bear losing you to it. The admission cracked something in me, anger melting to ache. We talked on the porch, mugs of cocoa steaming between us, the river's ice-crusted murmur underscoring his words. He confessed the full weight. Uncle's debts, the easement he'd hoped to buy out quietly with Ranger savings, fear of dragging me into poverty's maw. I thought I was shielding you. Stupid, proud macho bullshit. It wasn't absolution, not yet, but a bridge. We rebuilt tentative. Shared chores, hikes where hands brushed accidental on purpose, nights by the fire where stories flowed freer than before. Romance flickered back, soft as candle flame. His fingers sketching lazy hearts on my thigh during movie marathons, my head on his chest listening to the steady thump that echoed mine. We're stronger tangled, he'd whisper, echoing that first night, and I'd believe it, if only for the dawn. But betrayal's echo lingers, and Hargrove's next move was a thunderclap. A restraining order, slapped on both of us, barring access to the cabin pending safety review. Her petition cited hostile occupancy and vague threats, lies spun from neighbor gossip. The judge, a silver-haired relic, granted it provisional, his gavel a punctuation on our fragile peace. Carter raged in the truck on the drive back, fists white on the wheel. This is America, Liam, land of the free, unless you're us. The word bound us tighter even as eviction loomed. Evicted from our sanctuary, we crashed at my Capitol Hill place, the apartment's thin walls amplifying every sigh. Tension simmered. My freelance dried up under stress, his shifts stretched longer, arguments flaring over takeout remnants. You should have told me sooner, I'd accuse, voice rising. And you should have trusted me to fight with you, he'd retort, door slamming in punctuation. Yet in the quiet hours, we'd curl together on the futon, his breath sinking mine, a silent pact to endure. The climax brewed in March, as cherry blossoms tentatively pinked the city's branches. Hargrove's deposition loomed, a court showdown in Port Angeles courthouse, all polished wood and echoing halls. We prepped like warriors, Ruiz coaching us on testimony, a pro bono queer legal aid attorney named Patel sharpening our edges. Humanize it, she advised over Zoom, her bindi a bright spot in the screen's glow. This isn't contracts, it's hearts and homes. The day arrived crisp, Puget Sound glittering like shattered glass under sun. The courtroom smelled of old varnish and anxiety. Hargrove perched at her table in pearls and power suit, her lawyer a slick weasel in pinstripes. Witnesses paraded. Her, venomous, painting us as urban invaders disrupting God-fearing values. Neighbors, reluctant, admitting her maintenance was mostly bluster. Then us, Carter first, voice steady as granite. This land's my blood, my peace. And Liam? He's the reason it feels like home. My turn came, palms slick, but I channeled the sketches in my soul. It's not about square footage. It's about belonging. Two men carving space in a world that shrinks us. The judge recessed, his face unreadable. But as we filed out, Hargrove's glare burned, pure, unadulterated hate. That night, Victory tasted tentative. We celebrated quiet at a dive bar, shots of whiskey chasing fears. His hand found mine under the table, thumb stroking knuckles. Whatever comes, we're in it. Love, in that moment, felt like defiance, a romantic rebellion against the machine. But storms don't break clean. They scatter debris. The next morning, a call from Patel. Good news. The judge is leaning your way. But Hargrove's appealing, and there's a lien surfacing. On Carter's name. My blood iced. Lien? From what? The lien hit like a rogue wave, pulling us under without mercy. It wasn't just paperwork. It was a ghost from Carter's past, unearthed by Hargrove's digging. A student loan default from his community college days, rolled into Uncle's estate somehow, now weaponized against the cabin title. How? I demanded, pacing Patel's cluttered office in Pioneer Square, files stacked like Jenga towers. She sighed, adjusting her glasses. Creative lawyering. They're linking it to fraudulent transfer, claiming he had assets to dodge debts. Carter sat silent, head in hands, the man who'd felled trees with axes now felled by fine print. We drove back in silence, the sounds ferries chugging steadfast while our world tilted. Why didn't you pay it off? I asked finally, voice small against the engine's hum. He glanced over, jaw set. Thought I had extra shifts, side gigs, guiding hikes. Must have missed a payment in the chaos after Uncle. Chaos. His word for the year he'd lost his mom to cancer, the year he'd buried himself in the Olympics to grieve alone. I knew the outlines, but not the depths. The way debt collectors hounded him, how he'd pawned his grandfather's watch to scrape by. I didn't want you seeing that broke version of me, he admitted, pulling off at a viewpoint, the water endless below. You deserve the steady guy, not the screw-up. I climbed out, wind whipping my hair, tears stinging. Steady? Carter, steady is us weathering this shit together. Not you playing Lone Ranger. He joined me at the rail, arms wrapping from behind, chin on my shoulder. I'm sorry. Again. The apology was a ritual now, worn but earnest. We stood there till dusk, the horizon swallowing the sun, vowing transparency. No more shadows. But vows crack under pressure, and Hargrove's appeal was a vice. Hearings dragged into April, the cabin padlocked by court order, our belongings boxed in storage like exiles' relics. We sublet a studio in Fremont, trolls and tulips mocking our transience. Nights spent on an air mattress that wheezed like accusation. Romance survived in fragments. Stolen kisses in coffee lines, his mixtape of Bon Iver and Brandy Carlisle playing on loop, my sketches of us as superheroes, capes billowing against bureaucratic dragons. Yet conflict festered. Money tightened, my gigs sporadic, his overtime barely covering Patel's fees. Arguments escalated, old wounds reopening. If you'd been up front, we could have budgeted. I'd snap. And if you trusted my hustle, not questioned every dollar, he'd fire back. The deepest cut came mid-May, at a community fundraiser for queer land trusts. Ironic, given our plight. Held in a Capitol Hill warehouse, walls alive with murals of intertwined hands. The air buzzed with solidarity speeches and craft brews. Carter and I arrived arm in arm, a united front, but midway through, I spotted him in deep huddle with Jax's ex, a venture capitalist named Theo. Sharp-suited, charming, the kind of guy who networked heartbreaks. They laughed too easy, Theo's hand lingering on Carter's arm, and jealousy flared, hot and irrational. Later, in the alley behind the venue, cig smoke curling from my lips, a bad habit resurrected. I confronted him. What's with Theo? Old flames. Carter flushed, stepping close. Just talking funding for the cabin fight. He's got connections. Connections. The word soured, evoking Hargrove's web. Or is it escape? Someone with money. No baggage? The accusation hung, ugly, born of my own insecurities, the foster kid scars whispering I wasn't enough. He recoiled, hurt flashing. Jesus, Liam. After everything, the fight spilled raw. My fears of abandonment, his guilt over the lies. I love you, only you, he insisted, voice breaking. But doubt had seeded, and as we drove home, the silence was a chasm. That night, intimacy faltered. His touch tentative, mine withheld. Betrayal, I realized, wasn't just his secret. Mine was pushing him away, armor up against the pain. June brought the appeal hearing. A sweltering day in the courthouse's stuffy air, fans whirring futile. Hargrove testified last, her voice a calculated quiver. These men are opportunists, turning my family's heritage into a den of vice. Vice? The word landed like a slap, her eyes raking us with disgust. The pearl-clutching pinnacle of American hypocrisy. Carter's hand trembled in mine under the bench, but we held Ruiz's maps and Patel's briefs our shield. The judge, a younger woman this time, with a rainbow pin glinting on her lapel, delivered from the bench 2 days later. Appeal denied, title affirmed to Carter, with sanctions on Hargrove for frivolous claims. Victory hooped through our circle. Texts from Mia, champagnes on me. Hugs from Jax, Slay, Kings. We reclaimed the cabin in a jubilant convoy, unlocking the door to dust motes dancing in sunbeams, the river welcoming us home. Re-entry was euphoric. Unpacking boxes to Springsteen blasting, planting Victory Garden veggies in the yard. Nights where love reclaimed its throne. Slow, reverent. His body a map I'd never tire of exploring. We did it, he'd murmur post-climax, sweat slick and sated, fingers tracing my spine. Ours. Romance swelled, emotional and raw, plans bubbling. A commitment ceremony by the river, adoptions whispered like secrets. But humanism demands balance, and joy's shadow is reflection. One evening, as fireflies blinked in the meadow, Carter confessed the lien's toll. He'd taken a loan from Theo, not romantic, but strings attached. Equity in a future ecolodge on the land. To pay the debts clean, he said, eyes earnest. No more hiding. Relief mixed with wariness. Trust rebuilding is brick by brick. I nodded, pulling him close. Together, then. Always. Yet the real climax loomed not in court, but in heart's quiet chambers. Hargrove's final gambit arrived via courier. A settlement offer. Cash for the cabin. Her peace. We burned it in the fire pit, flames devouring greed. But as embers glowed, Carter's phone buzzed. A job offer from Theo's firm. Park Consulting in Colorado. 6 figures. Stability. Think about it, the message read. He showed me, face conflicted. For us. The offer dangled like forbidden fruit. Escape from Seattle's rains. A fresh start unscarred by battles. But leaving meant uprooting. Abandoning the safe house we'd bled for. Conflict tore at us. My roots in the city's queer pulse. His pull toward wide-open skies. Is this betrayal 2.0? I asked. Voice small by the river's edge. Water rushing indifferent. He knelt, taking my hands. No. It's choice with you. We waited nights on end. Pros in one column. Financial freedom. New horizons. Cons in another. Loss of legacy. Fear of running. Romance wove through. Hikes where we'd pause to kiss against trunks. Sketches I drew of us in Rocky Mountain wilds. Tentative and hopeful. But emotion crested in tears. Mine for the cabin's ghosts. His for the boy who dreamed of stability here. July's heat blanketed the Olympics, turning the river to a lazy shimmer. Fireflies to Morse code in the dusk. The job offer festered like an untreated wound. Conversations circling back inevitable as tides. Carter threw himself into ranger duties, leading youth groups on conservation treks. Ironic, teaching stewardship while our future hung in limbo. I'd watch him from afar sometimes, silhouetted against peaks, voice carrying stories of salmon migrations and old-growth wisdom, and ache with pride laced in fear. Was this his way out, or ours? I countered with visions of permanence, expanding the cabin with a studio for my designs, hosting queer artist retreats, turning sanctuary into community. We could make it legendary. I'd pitch over breakfast burritos on the porch, sketches fluttering in the breeze. He'd smile, that crinkle-eyed one, but hesitation shadowed it. Yeah, legendary. The unspoken loomed. Colorado's promise of erasure. A clean slate sans Hargrove's specter. Theo's persistence amplified the strain. Lunches in the city to discuss details. Texts pinging with salary breakdowns. One night, post-dinner at our place, he cornered me. Carter's talented, Liam. Deserves more than scraping by. His tone was paternal, but eyes appraised like property. And you? Ready for the big leagues? I bristled, defending our patchwork life. We're not for sale. But doubt whispered. Was I holding him back? My freelance flux a chain? The breaking point shattered on a sweltering August afternoon, during a harvest festival in nearby Brennan. Booths of berry pies and fiddles, the air sweet with hay and regret. We'd gone to unwind, hands linked through the crowd, but Theo appeared, all charisma and craft beer, clapping Carter on the back. Decided yet, buddy? The word buddy grated, proprietary. Carter flushed, glancing at me. Still thinking. We slipped away to the riverbank, willows draping like veils, but the mood soured. Tell him no, I urged, voice tight, or tell me yes to staying. He paced the pebbles, frustration boiling. It's not that simple. The debt's crushing us, your student loans too. Don't pretend. My loans, art school folly, deferred till now rearing. So run? Leave the fight we won. Accusations flew. My idealism naive, his ambition selfish. You always do this, build walls when it's hard, he yelled, voice echoing off water. And you hide behind legacy to avoid risk. Hearts raw, we parted, me to the truck, him vanishing into the woods. Hours later, he returned, eyes red-rimmed, a wildflower crown absurd in his hair. I talked to the trees, he joked weakly, kneeling. They say stay. But the crown wilted like our resolve. And that night, intimacy fractured. Bodies close but souls adrift. Touches mechanical. Tears salting the sheets. Betrayal's second act wasn't dramatic. It was erosion, slow and insidious. September winds stripped leaves early, mirroring our stripping bare. Carter accepted the offer. Tentative, just an interview. And flew to Denver, the airport goodbye a gut punch. His duffel slung, my hug lingering too long. Call every night, I whispered, throat thick. He nodded, kissing my forehead. Love you. This changes nothing. Changed everything. Calls dwindled to texts. His voice tinny over spotty service. Tales of Rocky's grandeur clashing with my cabin solitude. Hargrove faded, her appeal exhausted. A quiet settlement where she slunk away, but victory tasted ash. I poured energy into the land trust, organizing workshops on queer homesteading, voices rising in the meadow, trans farmers sharing soil secrets, lesbian couples plotting co-ops. It was humanistic gold, connection forged in dirt and dreams, but loneliness gnawed, the loft bed vast without him. October circled back, anniversary of the arrest, rain lashing like judgment. I drove to the city for a gallery opening. My designs on display, bold queer icons in acrylic and ink. The crowd buzzed, toasts to resilience, but my phone stayed silent. Halfway through, Carter's text. Interview killed it. Offers real 6 figures, benefits. What do? We. The word pulled, but distance distorted. I flew out unannounced, landing in Denver's thin air, lungs protesting as I rented a car to his temp digs. A sleek condo with mountain views, Theo's doing. He opened the door shirtless, towel-dried hair, shock melting to joy. Liam. We collided, kisses hungry, bodies rediscovering rhythms. Nights blurred in that sterile space. Exploring trails at dawn, his hand guiding mine over boulders. Evenings cooking elk stir-fry with microbrews. Talks deep as canyons. Colorado seduced. Vast skies unmarred by clouds, opportunities gleaming like quartz. We could thrive here, he said, tracing my palm by firelight. Build bigger. But bigger scared me. The erasure of Seattle's grit, the cabin's ghosts. What about home? I countered, voice small in the king bed. He sighed, pulling me close. Home's you, Liam. The rest, negotiable. Romance peaked there, emotional torrents. Hikes where we'd pause to vow eternities, stargazing on blankets where his whispers wove futures. Yet conflict simmered. Theo's dinner's networking felt too cozy, his laugh too easy at Carter's jokes. The climax erupted mid-visit. At a rooftop party, Theo hosted city lights sprawling, champagne flutes clinking among suited elites. Carter shone, pitching eco-ideas with ranger passion, but Theo's arm around his waist, brotherly? Ignited fuse. Drunk on bubbly and jealousy, I pulled him aside. This is it? Trading our raw for their polish. He bristled. It's security. For us, for kids someday if we want. Kids. The dream we'd toyed with, surrogacy whispers. But his us felt diluted, Theo's shadow long. Words escalated. My clinging to pain, his fleeing to fantasy. You're betraying what we fought for, I shouted, voice carrying over jazz. And you're trapping us in the past. He stormed off, me trailing to the valet, the drive back a minefield of silences. At the condo, it detonated, suitcases metaphorically packed, hearts laid bare. Choose, I demanded, tears streaming. Me or the mountains? He chose me, in that shattering moment, arms enveloping, sobs mingling. You, always. But choice's cost was clarity. We'd return to Seattle, decline the offer, face debts head-on. Humanistic, raw, the romance of choosing struggle over ease. November's chill welcomed us home. The cabin aglow with string lights I'd hung solo. We rebuilt deliberate. Debt counseling sessions in group with other queer couples, my gigs ramping with trust-funded prints, his ranger role expanded to advocacy. Love deepened, scarred but luminous. Nights where vulnerability was foreplay, his scars, literal and not, kissed like talismans. Yet the storm's tail lingered. A letter from Theo, curt, doors open if he reconsiders. Carter burned it, but embers of doubt glowed. December dawned crystalline. The Olympics blanketed in first snow, the cabin a jewel box against white drifts. We'd clawed back equilibrium, debts restructured into manageable bites. My art show in Tacoma a sellout buoying spirits. Carter led holiday hikes for at-risk youth, his voice a beacon. Nature doesn't judge, it holds. I join sometimes, sketching portraits of wide-eyed kids, capturing wonder in charcoal. Community wove us tighter. Potlucks with neighbors who'd testified, toasts to triumphs over Hargrove's ghost. Rumor had her selling out, fleeing to Arizona condos. Romance, post-climax, bloomed nuanced. Less wildfire, more hearthfire. Steady burns sustaining through blizzards. We'd carve time sacred. New Year's Eve on the frozen river, lanterns floating like prayers. His proposal whispered into ice-crusted air. Not a ring, yet, but words. Marry me, Liam. Here, where it all started. Tears froze on lashes, my yes a vow etched in frost. But humanism tempers joy with truth, and our ending wasn't fairy tale gloss. January brought relapse. Carter's knee, aggravated from a rescue op, swelled stubborn, sidelining him from trails. Bills spiked, PT sessions, meds, straining our fragile budget. Arguments resurfaced, softer but sharp. We can't afford this idol, he'd mutter over statements. Then what, Theo's leash? I'd retort, regret instant. The true test came in February. A freak storm burying the county, power lines snapping like brittle bones. Trapped 3 days, the cabin our cocoon and cage, tensions peaked. Candles guttered as we huddled by the hearth, venison jerky rationed, his leg propped on crates. Remember the arrest night? He said, voice low. Thought I'd lost you before we began. I nodded, hand on his. And I thought you were the lie. Confessions cascaded. His fear of inadequacy, rooted in Dad's rejection. My terror of abandonment, foster echoes. Betrayal wasn't the secret, he admitted, eyes reflecting flames. It was fearing I wasn't enough to keep you. I wept then, raw. You are. We're enough. Intimacy followed, not passionate blaze but tender thaw. Bodies warming shared space, touches mapping forgiveness. Storm broke, plows rumbling, but clarity lingered. We emerged changed. Debts confronted with a joint plan. His knee rehabbed with my sketches as motivation. Superhero Carter, knee brace as armor. Spring unfurled gentle. Blackberries budding, our garden thriving with volunteer tomatoes. Hargrove's shadow? Vanished, her property a for sale sign, reclaimed by Wild. The ending, humanistic to its core, unfolded Memorial Day weekend. Picnic by the river, blanket spread, rescue pup, named Echo, chasing sticks. Friends gathered. Jax in full glam, Mia with pies, Ruiz with maps of expansions. Carter rose, glass raised. To safe houses, not just wood and walls, but the loves that weather storms. Eyes met mine, hazel to green, a lifetime in the lock. We didn't rush rings or relocations. Instead, we rooted deeper. Art retreats launched. Youth camps hosted. The cabin pulsing with lives intertwined. Love, dramatic and emotional, proved not in grand gestures but quiet endurance. His hand in mine on porch swings, my head on his chest to river lullabies. Betrayal scars faded to stories, conflicts to strengths, climax to catalyst. In America's vast tapestry, flawed, fierce, we carved our thread. Two men unbowed, building not despite the gales, but through them. The safe house stood, ours eternally, a testament to romance's radical act, choosing each other, again and again, till the stars wheeled out. As snowberries sweetened in summer sun, Carter pulled me close one dusk, lips brushing ear. Twisted together, unbreakable. And in that American wild we were.